Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Nick Knoke, Director of Technology for the ALN, and today I'm very excited to talk to Mike Bordenaro, the Executive Director for the Asset Leadership Network. Before we get underway, we just want to thank our ALN Platinum organizational member, a new membership level this year, Onuma System, Building Informed Environments. And we will talk more about Onuma and BIMstorms today with Mike. Don't want to forget our other ALN patron members. As you can see here, we have a new one, CGI, and grateful to our continued patron members as well, and all our organizational members for making programming like this possible, our newsletter, and events like what we have coming up next Tuesday. Talk about that in a second. But before I do, just to say that if you're interested in working with the ALN, becoming a organizational member at any level, please reach out and talk to us. We would be happy to figure out how we can work together. And next Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, at 10 a.m. Washington Eastern Time, we have an asset management leadership white paper, an event with the Institute of Asset Management. And I think Mike will maybe talk a little bit more about that. Mike, why don't you join us? Hey.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for being here, Mike. We always start with how did you get here in your asset management journey, right? So maybe we should start there.
Okay, well, thanks for being the host today. I'm going to try to be a good guest and not take over. But I was Jesus Christ in the 6th grade Passion Play. All this goes back to that. No, I'm kidding. It helped me become a control freak, but I try to use my neurosis for the good of society is what it comes down to. And
I think we can agree you're doing a pretty good job at that.
Well, thank you very much. But my mother got me involved in organizing Catholic youth organization events. We had 5,000 kids from around the country come to DePaul University when I was in high school. And so I've been an organizer in college. I started the Student Architecture Association and eventually became the student committee for the American Institute of Architects Chicago chapter. And finished college writing about architecture and got a job writing for Building Design and Construction magazine. And I was focusing on technology, and then eventually went to Singapore, was the Singapore correspondent for Electronic Business Asia in the mid-90s. And when I came back to the US, I realized, oh, architecture technology. If I write about architecture technology, I'll always be able to write about something new. And that led me to BIM, Building Information Models, before BIM was even called BIM. And that led me to Kimon Onuma. And Kimon taught me that he could create an intelligent object for everything in the world. That's what digital twins were called back then, were intelligent objects. And I realized that if we had an intelligent object for everything in the world, we would run the real world much better. So that was my plan, create an intelligent object, a digital twin for everything in the world. And then through that, I met Jack Dempsey and helped Kimon launch BIMstorm in 2007. BIMstorms are online brainstorms that use digital twins to replicate what's going on in the real world so you can advance planning. And Jack Dempsey eventually informed me about the Asset Leadership Network. And I went to the first event in DC. It wasn't the first event, but I did go to the first event in Washington, DC, and met Jim. And one of the highest compliments I got was within 20 minutes of a meeting, Jim said, "This guy's a keeper." And he didn't realize how much he was predicting the future there when he said that. And so asset management is the place where the dramatic benefits of advanced technologies can actually be used. And the building industry, I ran into the glass ceiling of the facility manager, the facility vice president, who cannot change contracts, cannot change accounting, cannot require all departments to give information in a certain way. That has to happen at the C-suite. So I immediately understood that in order to realize the values of all these technologies that Kimon and Jack have helped me understand, they needed to be at the top level. And the Asset Leadership Network is a way to be able to get the message to those people.
Excellent. Great, great way to tell us from your very humble beginnings of your journey to slightly more lofty now as executive director for the Asset Leadership Network, well placed to be affecting leadership globally. And something occurred to me, I think a quote you've heard that I'll paraphrase just to say, all models are wrong and some of them are useful. Is that an accurate depiction?
Jim Deder quotes Tony McGrail. And I think that's a good way of saying that. Yes. And what the models do when you're using these building information models, representing trusted data in a visual format on Google Earth, very realistic way, people can say, I see what you're talking about relative to complex situations. And when they see what you're talking about, then they're willing to change their behavior to affect the virtual outcome that has been predicted in these models. If you want this done by this time, this, and has to happen, I will contract to make sure that this, and this happens by these times so that the outcome of having the brain surgery hospital open at a certain time is successful.
Yeah, I think that does some of the hard work of, really conveying to people why go through the exercise of, a lot of people have different ways to manage their current data, and a lot of it feels fairly trapped. They're using a certain software, or maybe they're still in paper, and it'll take a lot of legwork and motivation at a variety of levels in an organization or an enterprise to see all of that data come to fruition in one system that, as Kimon likes to say, open source, open standards, real time, one source of truth. And so maybe you could talk even a little more about how this form, how BIM helps, how it helps, you said it helps the planning process, but it does more than just future planning. It can help with looking at what you've got and keeping it in good working condition with resilience, as well as, future planning upgrades and beyond.
Yes, so I will lean on something that Kimon uses, and he used on Tuesday. And the reason why I'm the guest today is to promote the BIMstorm that the ALN is doing with Onuma Inc. that was announced on Tuesday at our very successful event with the Asset Management Council. Kimon says, everyone's familiar with Uber and how Uber works, and all of our business processes should work like that. You do not need the entire map of the world. You just need the map of your section. You don't need a model of a car with its engine, exhaust system, drivetrain, cup holders. You just need a little representation of a car moving across a simple map. And that gets the information that people needs, and a driver and a passenger are paired up and delivered in the right place at the right time. And those processes can be applied to all businesses. And going through the BIMstorm activity, it's a workshop activity. It's not a real project. It's a fake project. People don't have to be afraid, but they can prove to themselves that these systems work. and that maybe they should consider using them and start the process of slowly learning. There's a learning curve that's involved, but we used to try to sell people to use advanced tools. Now everybody has had their iPhones long enough, they get it, and they're looking for these. So it's kind of nice that people have caught up.
Yeah, and in there I heard a mission focus, when you were talking about Uber and the amount of data that you could have and display around cars and logistics around geography and such. But what you were saying is you just give people the information they need to make good decisions. Or people on both sides of it, the people using the service who need a ride and the people driving the cars and providing a service. It's about that mission of getting people where they want to go efficiently, effectively. And in a world where we've come around to collecting data in a lot of ways, and now it's more making sure the data is in a format that we can consume that actually helps our decision making, and making sure that it's not out of date as soon as you print it off, whatever database, it's out of date because there's real-time numbers coming in. So it seems like it becomes important to have a digital interface that can be updated in real time, coming back to that single source of truth. So you don't have two people saying, well, the data from yesterday is this and the data from a month ago is this, and they say slightly different things, and what do we make a decision off? We want to be able to see it all in one place, kind of.
Yes. Well, thank you for mentioning the mission focus, and hearing that mission, because to me, that is the driver of all asset management, because you're not going to succeed if everyone isn't clear on the mission. And Jack Dempsey and the Coast Guard are the people who helped me understand that. Now, I've got a little prepping for that because my father is a retired colonel. So I have, an understanding of the military imperative of mission. But Jack Dempsey used to start all of his presentations with a slide of a person in the water with a life ring around them being lifted out of the water into a Coast Guard helicopter. This is our mission. You have to save lives. If you're not helping us with our mission, you're extraneous and should leave. And I was like, wait a second, that sounds extreme. But eventually I realized that even mopping the floor is important, so that if a Coast Guard ship shows up and needs to run in and get medical supplies, nobody slips and falls, and they're able to get back onto the ship and go, that's a silly example, but it helped me understand how you can even tie mopping the floor to a successful mission. And it's what made me fall in love with ISO 55000. I read through it. And when I got to the first real item on the to-do list of ISO 55001 is your strategic asset management plan shall align with your organizational mission. There it is. I was like, great. And then there's so many other things about ISO 55000 that I love, but the mission focus breaks down the silos between human beings who frequently need to have compartmentalization in order to feel comfortable. But mission unifies everyone with one compartment, the mission. And that's really important. And by visualizing the impacts on the mission through virtual representations of the real world, you get people to buy into the goal a lot better.
And so without giving it away, we want people to attend one of these upcoming BIMstorm events so that they can see for themselves. But the way I understand it, it's not just using building information models alone per se. A BIMstorm, as I think Kimon maybe and you coined it, is a brainstorm. It's a collaborative event, and it's meant to, I think you maybe said it, these BIMstorms will be somewhat of an exercise. They're not like, we're trying to plan a campus, so let's get on with it. It's like, well, if we were trying to plan a campus, let's show how using modern tech, but also how that affects the mission of collaboration, of getting everyone's needs met in a long list of stakeholders. So
Yes,
yeah,
and that actually fits into the next item on ISO 55001 that really excited me, which is involve all relevant stakeholders. And what the BIMstorm, and that's Kimon's phrase, term, does is allow everyone to collaborate together. You can get the janitor involved in the planning of the hospital and have the janitor say, if you put the janitorial closet that far down the hall, people will have to walk 100 feet extra twice a day. And over 100 years, that will relate to as much money as your entire building will cost. So let's put the janitor closet right here. And it allows non-technical experts to understand a project or an activity so that they can make their contributions. I love that you made that collaboration connection. That's the second thing that made me fall in love with ISO 55001.
yeah, you've mentioned ISO 55001 now a number of times, and it occurs to me that standards are very important considerations in these things because when dealing with complexity, rather than reinvent the wheel, it makes sense to say, oh, in these different arenas that all pertain to our mission of an excellent new sustainable campus, what are the relevant standards that we can draw on so that, yeah, maybe we'll have some specific questions for the janitor or other specific people who are going to be using the facility. But I think a lot of the hard work can be done by utilizing internationally recognized best practices. And then showing people, well, we're doing it this way because we're using this standard, and we're prioritizing our mission, and we're aligning with a variety of these different standards, and this is how we've come to. Does anyone see another way we can hit all those, or does that make sense?
Yes, bringing up the fact that these BIMstorms are not just about building information model standards. It's about sharing the information from many sources through what you mentioned earlier, the secure open standards, so that a complex building can be doing the best in class relative to HVAC systems, to water treatment, to solar collection. All of these things need to be operating. And then the building information model can be used as a dashboard, and the solar panels go red when they're not working, and the heat pump goes red if it's not working, and it becomes a dashboard. But the information from these other sources need to be there so that non-technical experts can say, whoop, there's something wrong with the sewer pump. Somebody needs to go, and this is where it's located. And the importance of standards and open standards and having them interact was emphasized on Tuesday when the Los Angeles Community College District presented with Kimon, and one of the people was their standards direct coordinator, because they've had billions of dollars of projects and they need to work together. So they actually have a standards coordinator, and that was great. That was the first time we had a standards coordinator on one of our programs. It really emphasizes the importance of interactive standards.
Totally. So we had a few guiding questions for our session today. Mike, do you feel like you want to talk any more about the history of BIMstorms in the ALN?
Yeah, we really haven't touched on that. I did say that the BIMstorms started in 2007. The first one was in 2008, January 31st. And just had our anniversary, and I forgot to, reach out to Kimon on that, but we were planning this event yesterday or on Tuesday. And we had people from all around the world working for 24 hours on a site outside of Los Angeles. And some people were working on a building and they went to bed and they woke up and there were all kinds of other buildings all around them because people were around the world working on other things. And that was just to show in 2007 that you don't have to fly all over the world to work with your experts. You can do this on the web. And they have evolved since then. And we've been fortunate at the ALN to have numerous BIMstorms activities with Kimon. We did one with the Armed Forces Retirement Home. We've done one with Art Kurland and the University Health, and created a temporary hospital, virtual temporary hospital in the parking lot at University Health to show people how they could, during COVID, create temporary facilities as the need for space expanded. And last year we did a program that lifted up one of those temporary hospitals and landed it on a port in Ukraine, and showing that, we can start planning for rebuilding the Ukraine now, so that when this silly war finally ends, we'll be able to help the people who have been suffering. And it turned out that it wasn't a future activity. We connected with microgrid experts who were sending microgrids to the Ukraine and help them model and show how their microgrids can be used in association with hospitals. So we're trying to show how to manage your assets using advanced tools and processes in ways that will help you achieve your mission.
Yeah, and that you mentioned a number of examples there of BIMstorms, which I think really help describe a little bit more how they can be used. We've talked a lot about what BIMstorms are ideally, but it really helps to hear, oh, this is, again, getting back to that, not reinventing the wheel. If we've created a building information model for a temporary hospital, we can pull up Google Earth and with a few clicks and a drag, drop that temporary hospital in campuses all over the country where they're needed in the event of a pandemic, or ship them overseas, virtually for the help of planning and showing people, okay, this is the amount of space that you'll need. This is the amount of electricity, HVAC, plumbing for this type of a facility with this capabilities. I think Kimon says things like, it's not enough anymore when you're dealing with the complexity of a healthcare facility to have conversations and hope that someone is taking, accurate enough notes, and then to, take your handwritten notes and, try to convey them to the builder, to the electrician, to all these stakeholders that are and people performing the necessary duties that need specification and accuracy and, that single source of truth. When someone says, no, we're going to push this part of the facility over here based on what the janitor says or whoever, that single source of truth, that building information model reflects that in real time, so that, when the architect or whoever looks at that, it really helps to add stories to this, to show people in practice how powerful this is and how many potential pitfalls it can avoid.
So thank you for summarizing it very well like that. And what we're doing in the BIMstorm that will be starting March 1st is focusing on a health clinic on a university campus. And we're doing that for a number of reasons. One, we're launching boards, including the ALN Higher Education Asset Leadership Board. And we will have information that will attract people with higher education responsibilities for assets at higher education institutions to be interested. And we already have a healthcare clinic that has been modeled, and we have some people in the healthcare industry who are interested. Art Kurland, we are confident will participate. And put that, land a model on a campus? Is it good here? Is it good there? If we're going to have solar panels on it, should it be oriented this way? Do we need classrooms in this? Because the clinic that we built for art didn't have classrooms, and maybe a clinic on a healthcare campus or on a higher education campus, they would want to not only serve the students who are sick, but also serve the students who are learning to take care of people who are sick. So, we might have to change the model a little bit. And they are interested in microgrids. So maybe, the parking lot nearby will have a solar panel on it and a battery that will store excess energy for use at night. These are all things that we'll be able to explore in that BIMstorm.
Yeah, so it feels like we're getting into one of our next questions, which is, what are
I'm back. My plug came out and I realized I'm losing battery and I don't want to have this die. Sorry.
No worries. I was just going to say to our next question, which I feel like you're segueing into, what sort of, if someone had watched the presentation on Tuesday where Kimon and the LA Community College District were talking about BIMstorms and their use of building information models, what would you say to some, so maybe someone thinks they have an idea of what building information models are and when you'd use them and why. Talk more about the value and the benefits someone might expect to see from attending one of our future events.
A really good question, because it seems crazy to think that one workshop is going to be everything to all people. And we're not saying it is everything. The realities of projects are more complex than we're going to be dealing with in the workshops. However, the workshops are representative of how to approach the full life cycle of an asset and the asset information. And anybody who is involved in that entire life cycle of the building will benefit from understanding that they can get trusted information, as you've been emphasizing, from a model. And Los Angeles Community College District talked about how they are now using their models as dashboards to represent information to different segments of their constituency. Even teachers are using the models to find out which rooms are available for extra courses, and students are able to use them for wayfinding. That's in addition to mechanical engineers knowing where equipment is when they need to go and service it. It's in addition to the finance department understanding the information about when roofs need to be repaired so they can establish future budgets for maintenance and operations. So it seems a little bit crazy that everybody can benefit from understanding how this new business process of using the virtual world and digital twins can help them. But that's what it is. We just want people to feel comfortable with this, and whether they immediately start using this or just the seed is planted in time, they're not as afraid when a new change comes along. That's part of what these workshops are, to help people.
And I would point out here just that this is not a software that we're trying to sell here. This is
a process.
This is a process, and it is set up, relying on best practices and standards for data management to assure that in the best way possible, your data isn't going to be owned and stuck in Apple something or other or Microsoft something or other, and it won't talk to other people without paying a fee, or maybe never. A lot of this, the way this is set up is, if you're going to be putting so much effort and important information in here, you want to make sure you have access to it in the way that you want it, when you want it, where, and that you own it and that it's secure. And so I think you spoke about a lot of different user groups, how this process used well could benefit them and speed up their operations, grease the gears. Would you, since we're the Asset Leadership Network, would you talk about to potential leaders out there thinking, you know, is this course for me, or is this just for facility managers or teachers, or, you know, what are the value and benefits they can expect to, or what would you hope they would get out of such a
Excellent.
course?
It's a great closing question. I would recommend to them to watch the final presentation to be encouraged that they can request these approaches. There'll be a couple workshops to get the input of many people, shape it into a meaningful presentation. And it's that final presentation that we want the owners, the top person, someone who's signing policy or signing check, to say, do it this way. Start a pilot project so we can begin to teach our team how to get the benefits of a structured approach to asset management that leverages digital twins, visual representations of accurate asset data.
Well, for leaders out there listening, you heard it there. We'll see you at the final course session. And so should I do a formal closing here? And do you want to continue
Sure.
talking for a bit, Mike?
Sure, let's do the formal closing.
Okay. Well, for those of you that only had 30 minutes, thank you for being with us today and listening to our discussion about ALN, BIMstorms with the ALN Higher Education, an upcoming course series. You can find more information about that on our website. And it's really made possible by ALN Platinum organizational member Onuma system, building informed environments. And you can find out more about that at onuma-bim.com. But really, all our ALN patron members are so important to programs like this, the upcoming course, newsletter, etc. And all our organizational members, we're grateful to continue to work with you and for you to achieve all our missions as effectively as possible. And with that, we'll just make a plug for next Tuesday, Asset Management Leadership, a white paper, an event with the Institute of Asset Management. As you can see, a number of esteemed panelists will be there talking about the white paper, its context, and its value, I'm sure.
And then next Thursday, we have Richard Dietz from the DC Government Office of Chief Financial Officer, who will be talking about the next generation of asset management system that they are launching at DC Government. Richard Dietz is a font of information, and we look forward to talking with him.
And when you say an asset management system, again, you're not talking about a software, though it may rely on various softwares. You're talking about a system of systems, a system of business processes.
That includes multiple software systems and information coming together to help decision makers make better decisions. That's what Richard's up to. That's what the BIMstorms are for. That's what the Asset Leadership Network is about.
Awesome. And do you want to talk about the future of BIMstorm a little bit, maybe with a specific sector, port industry?
Yeah, well, thank you for mentioning that. Yes. I mentioned that we are launching boards, asset leadership boards, and the City and Places Asset Leadership Board has been established. And I wouldn't be surprised if that board even gets involved in this higher education, because higher education and healthcare occur in cities and places, and they interact with the roads and the bridges and the water systems, electricity all around. And then we're going to be launching a ALN Ports Asset Leadership Board with the member Trent Port Services, and President John Arnott participated with Kimono Numa in the Ukrainian BIMstorm that we did. And he told us about ports and the energy created by cranes lifting and lowering heavy loads, and that needs to be put into burned off or put into batteries. So that board will be having a BIMstorm focus on ports later in the year if everything goes right. And we can basically set things up for any industry that wants to get the message of asset management out to their industry.
It's hard to imagine an industry that couldn't benefit from, like what industry isn't dealing with a world of problems and complexity and uncertainty? What industry wouldn't want to lean on international standards and a system of systems designed to be efficient, not let things slip through the cracks, inform better decision making, use the most modern technology can offer?
Well, that's what the Asset Leadership Network is here to help people understand how to use a structured approach to asset management to leverage the explosion of tools and processes that are coming out in order to improve their mission outcomes.
Yeah, I think maybe it was you or someone else recently was talking about how in the last 100 years or even in the last 50, the rate at which things are changing, not just the size of processors and technology, but the way, the collaborative, almost crowdsourcing way that new tools are being created, both software and hardware. So there are solutions out there, and finding a way to orchestrate and not be stuck with one.
Yes, but what you started off with is the key. The increase in the processing technology is helping humanity leverage tools in ways that create new processes, and humanity needs to catch up with these tools and processes. And the idea is to help them become comfortable